Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged Show podcast, right here on the Everything Electric channel. Oh yes, now one thing I can say early on is that there's probably going to be, because that's kind of confusing series of titles, there's going to be a little bit of simplification in the middle of this year as we do some, I don't think we're doing rebranding, we're doing some clever stuff. It's all above my pay grade. Anyway, this episode of the Fully Charged Show podcast is timely, I think it's fair to say. So one of the amazing projects that we've seen on the Fully Charged Show a couple of times now is a company in Australia called Janus Trucks. They convert big, heavy, really big, heavy duty diesel trucks to electric drive. And they've developed a system, a battery swapping system, which is incredible. Because it's on such a huge scale. I mean, the batteries are big. I think they're around 350 kilowatt hours per pack, and there's two of them. So it's huge on either side of a truck. And this is a big, what I would call an articulated lorry in old-fashioned English, or a semi-truck. It's those sort of scale, really enormous. And in Australia, they're much bigger than anything we can have in Europe. And they sometimes have an extra trailer on the back. They're just huge. And of course, they're so much cleaner, so much more efficient, so much cheaper to run, so much less maintenance needed. Massive list of advantages. I'll let Lex explain that. So I'm talking to Lex Forsyth, who is from Janus Trucks. Just an amazing guy. I've interviewed him a couple of times. Such a lovely dude as well. He's a really nice man, really interesting, really got the picture of what we need to do to decarbonize heavy duty road transport. We all rely on it. You know, everything we've got, everything we wear, everything we buy, every computer, every camera, every book, it's going to be shipped in a truck at some point in its life. And so, you know, we're all very involved in that, all the food we eat, all that stuff. It can be electrified. You know, electrifying a long-haul aircraft, incredibly difficult. No one knows how to do it. Electrifying a long-haul truck, yeah, easy peasy. Get on with it. Just get on with it, which is exactly what Janus are doing. They're not talking about it. They're doing it. And it's very, very exciting. That's enough. I'll just go straight into it. Please welcome onto the Fully Charged Show podcast, Lex Forsyth from Janus Trucks. We've teamed up with Duracell Energy to celebrate their brilliant ecosystem of home energy products and their platinum homeowner offer by giving away a Duracell bunny. To win, simply watch to the end and answer a question about the Fully Charged Show. Lex, it's really good to see you, and thanks very much for joining us and for staying up as late as you have. Although it looks like you're in the middle of a sunny day in Australia from your fabulous background.
The backdrop of beautiful downtown Mount Gambier. One of our logging trucks, one of our great customers down there that we delivered back in 2023. So. It's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, it's a great shot. And I think it's worth, for people who don't know what you do and haven't seen the episodes we've made about you, I think it's worth pointing out there's no smoke coming out of that truck. There's no diesel smoke. It's very quiet.
Very quiet, fully electric, swappable battery, fastest recharging in the world, 620 kilowatts in 4 minutes. So it's traveled. That truck's, it's now 10 years old. Came to us at the end of 2022,
right?
And they got it back in March 23, and it's now done over 100,000 kilometres and about 850 battery swaps.
Wow! So it's done 100,000 kilometres since you converted it.
Correct. Yeah.
And those kilometres are not just tootling down the shops to get some milk. They're pulling huge, enormous trailers of logs and heavy stuff.
Yeah, so it's a 72-ton. Gross combination mass. So it's and it's in a severe application. It's in logging applications, as you can see, it's dirt roads in and out of the forestry. But if you think about the ultimate carbon sink and then delivering logs as a zero emission, like this is all sustainable logging, in the Green Triangle in Victoria and South Australia, and you've now got electric vehicles delivering the logs out of the forestry. So it's just another step of the ultimate carbon sink in sustainable forestry.
I mean, it is what you're doing. I think is truly remarkable. I mean, we've always had a very positive, response when people see what you're up to. The two shows we've done with you, but I mean, every time I see you, it just you kind of done another step. So, would you mind taking us through the? I mean, you and I have talked about this on the show, but for podcast listeners, might not be aware of this. That can you tell us the kind of the journey that those trucks go on? And because I think all those statistics are fascinating. How many miles a truck does in comparison with a car? So we're all used to cars. Trucks are a very different beast.
Yeah, it is, and it's what people don't realise is sort of the average age of trucks around the world are about 12 to 13 years of age. So most trucks are put into very high duty cycle applications. So your trucks will do before they need a diesel engine rebuild, they do anywhere between 800,000 to 1,000,000 kilometres in about 5 years.
Right.
At that time, they need to do a diesel engine rebuild, which typically is a major overhaul. You've got also componentry with radiators and turbos and water pumps and all of those things that go with the ICE engine. What we do is, and what our fleet customers are doing, they're bringing their trucks to us somewhere between 5 to 7 years of age, and we're swapping out the diesel engine for a full, what we call essentially our Janus conversion module, which is an electric crate motor with a transmission, radiator package, and all the services needed to run the truck. And they go from being a diesel truck to a full electric powered prime mover. And the key difference with Genus is we operate a swappable battery, and we convert OEMs trucks. So we've converted 5 different OEMs products around the world globally, from Volvo, Kenworth, Mack, Western Star, and Freightliner. So across pretty much the major truck manufacturers. And we give those vehicles another 10 to 15 years of life by going to that electric conversion. So essentially, it's the ultimate recycling of existing infrastructure and taking it from the old technology to the new technology, and hence the name Janus. It's the Roman god of transition and safe passage, and you've got to look back to go forwards and forward to go back. So bringing those two things together and bringing it to fruition today.
And I mean, I think one of the things that I've certainly learned from you and from other companies that are converting older vehicles, particularly trucks, is that the underlying sort of skeleton of the truck it's perfect. Even after all those miles, it's not like a car. You always think if a car had done 1,000,000 miles, it's going to be pretty shabby. But a truck is in, very. I mean, they're very, very steadily built in the first place. I guess that's the big difference, isn't it? They're much beefier machines.
Yeah, they're designed and engineered to last. And when the average age globally of trucks is between 12 to 13 years of age, it means you've still got trucks that are potentially 25 years of age running around, and then obviously new trucks. And I think the key fundamental is that the truck manufacturers can only produce 5% at maximum capacity of the world of the truck fleet in the world,
right?
And so to even get close to hitting zero emissions targets and reducing the transport industry's carbon footprint, we needed to start 5 years ago building every truck as zero emissions to even get close to it. So it's not going to only just be done with new trucks. You've got to convert the older trucks. And when you think about it, like the older trucks also have different Euro emission standards. Yeah. So, trucks that are 15 years of age are typically Euro 4 and Euro 5 standards. So they're even worse for emitting, they're higher emitting pollution coming out of those diesel engines. So why not convert the older trucks to electric and give them that second life and get the higher emissions trucks off the road sooner, rather than just thinking you've got to replace them with new or go to Euro 6 and Euro 7. Go electric, and repurpose that vehicle and get it off the road soon.
So I would imagine I know you've dealt with this, but the resistance to that from, say, big trucking companies or big companies that run a fleet of trucks is, I guess, the cost of the transformation of it. And also then they'll go, oh, well, there's no charging infrastructure. Oh, we can't use them. We do long haul, all those, they're even boring. The list of excuses, some of which are completely legitimate, some of which are just based on, misinformation. But I mean, how do you respond with that? Because if you've got to rebuild a truck engine after it's done 1,000,000 kilometers, I'm guessing that's quite an expensive job and quite a big job.
It is. And that's the thing that they don't realize is and once they start to understand the efficiency of electric motors and the reduced maintenance, We've got trucks in Sydney now running around, and when the drivers first hop in them, they've got 500 brake applications for the shift. They're now down sub 200 brake applications for the same shift because they can use the regenerative braking. So there's a hidden maintenance saving just in trailer brakes and truck brakes by being able to harness that energy back into the battery. And that capital that they're going to spend on the diesel engine rebuild is already allocated to be spent. If you spend a little bit more, convert it to electric, the differentiation, we're seeing between an 8 to 12 month payback on the differentiation in capital just between the diesel engine rebuild and the conversion to electric. And then that savings ongoing as well too. But what we're finding is really interesting is a lot of our fleet's clients are now saying, what's your pathway to sustainability? How do we get to zero emissions? What journey you're on? And, the challenge particularly in Australia and a lot of jurisdictions is that, multiple trailer combinations, the OEMs haven't catered and haven't delivered a product that can do, over 50 tonnes gross combination mass. Right. So, where you've got big freight tasks, where, Australia, the tyranny of distance in Australia is huge. It's about having a product that they can do. They can get to zero emissions now and have a pathway, but also using the assets they've already got. They've typically paid these trucks off over 5 years. So rather than invest more money into the old technology, spend a little bit more, put the new technology into it and see the savings and the greater uptime. It's, fleets want trucks on the road longer.
But I mean, I think the other, very large saving has got to be effectively on fuel. I mean, where we came to see your battery swapping thing, I mean, that's powered by solar. So the fuel, correct. It is wrong always to say the fuel is free, but it's very, very cheap. If you've got to invest in a big solar array and all the equipment that goes with it to transform it, but it's still, in comparison to having your own oil well and refinery, it's much cheaper.
It is. And the energy is more efficient. Like if you look at calorific value of fuel and convert that to kilowatt hours and do the conversions across, you're starting with a diesel engine, you're only seeing about 32 to 33% of the energy at the drive wheels of the truck from an energy efficiency point of view. And, then when you start to get smart and do behind the meter rooftop solar, wind, or even look at when you shape your charge, depending on what grid and infrastructure connections you've got, there's some really good opportunities to create a good baseload for more investment into renewable energy, but also help stabilise grids when there's a lack of demand during the day, because most grids around the world, most grids are sort of 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. They're at maximum capacity of a night time. And then the rest of the time, the grid infrastructure is underutilised or only running at about 30% capacity. So there's a good way to utilise existing infrastructure and charge batteries when renewables in production, because the biggest problem most grids around the world have is when renewables in production, there's no demand for that energy, and either you've got to have static batteries taking it in, or you're trying to adjust transmission and generation to meet the flexible demand. Whereas this solution solves all of those issues, and it's cheap and affordable. And that's the big thing we've got to start to look at. There's cost of living pressures everywhere globally. And, there's a heavy reliance in a lot of countries for imported fuel. Australia, 95% of all Australia's fuel is imported. There's not many countries around the world that have all their own oil production to feed transport. And in Australia, transport's the second biggest contributor to GDP. It's our second largest industry behind mining. So it's a huge sector that's ripe for disruption. And I don't think people realise how hard it is going to be to decarbonise transport if we don't look at innovative solutions and start this process now, because it's not a simple task to do.
Yeah. I mean,
we've made it simple, Rob.
Yeah, you have made it simple. Yeah. I mean, it is that sort of the excitement in a way of the complete transition. Because if you were just, in a sense, even for a truck company that has no interest in solar and generating their own fuel, there's still a saving there. But the fact is that the kind of the quantum leap that you're going to get if you have a base, this is why it's kind of different to domestic vehicles, to home, to your own car, because you're going to have a truck depot which has the potential for really large amounts of solar, heavy duty industrial infrastructure. That's what it is. It's not a garden. It's a factory or a big thing, and that's where it becomes very different, doesn't it? I mean, the whole approach is different.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, if you think about all the industrial areas and rooftop warehouses,
Yeah.
like rooftop solar that can be on warehouses at all these industrial parks globally around the world.
Yeah.
There's no reason why that can't have rooftop solar installed coming into a microgrid within that industrial park that helps power the industrial park, but also feeds the trucks with energy that's coming to and from those places to deliver freight and pick freight up out of those locations. That is a very simple solution, and it makes sense. You're not putting solar arrays out in the middle of beautiful nature and those sorts of things. It's in the industrial area, and it's a second revenue stream for industrial complexes as well too, from being able to provide energy directly into the transport sector.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that we should. I just want to make sure that people who are watching and listening to this understand that you're not. If you have a truck depot and you've got a Janus truck there, it drives in. It needs charging. You're not plugging it in.
No.
Well, I think this is a really important point. You actually you take the whole or two huge batteries out of the truck and you put it in a unit. It's such a kind of simple but clever system. And then you take full batteries out of there and put them back in the truck. And at the moment, that's taking around, 4 minutes to swap that over?
Yeah, 4 minutes to re-energize the truck with 620 kilowatts. So they're two 310 kilowatt batteries on either side of the truck.
Right.
Simply just take them out with the forklift, slide the other batteries in. It's like a big cordless drill where you're just swapping your batteries.
Yeah.
And then the truck continues on its way.
Yeah.
And the beauty about that is and this is where Genus is very different to a lot of the OEMs, is we've created we've looked at it differently. We've gone, how do we electrify the transport industry and keep their normal operations and what they're used to as part of our process, so that we're not trying to develop technology and say, right now you adapt it into your operation. It's, well, we need to be able to double shift a truck. So if we can swap the batteries at the end of the shift and the truck continues on, it's not sitting on a charger for 3 hours waiting to re-energize. It's a huge saving for the fleet. It's the same about being able to shape charge and work within the constraints of grids and electrical connections, so that you can optimize that infrastructure as well too and utilize it to its best effect.
Yeah.
And that's the key difference with Genus. We've approached it from a whole solution. And I think if you look at traditional OEMs, and this is where they struggle to a certain degree, is they've never had to think about energy supply for the vehicles they sell. No. They make it run on diesel, give it to the fleet operator and say, go and get your diesel wherever you want.
Yeah.
Now they go, well, let's make it with a battery on it and it's fixed, and you go and plug it in wherever you want. But that plug-in infrastructure is not there, and I suppose where transport struggles at the moment is with plug-in vehicles in particular. Is everyone's thought, okay, we just plug cars in, that's fine. But when you think about the energy, we're putting in average sort of 500 kilowatts, so half a megawatt of energy every charge cycle. That's not a small amount of energy to try and put in quickly. So it's about how do you think through that process and then create something that the industry can utilize and get it to a common size energy source that it works on multiple trucks. Because there's common energy used for the transport industry now. It's diesel. You don't go to a service station and say, I want Volvo diesel or I want MAN diesel or Scania diesel. You just get diesel. And what we've created is you just get the Janus battery. Right. It fits on those trucks, and it gives a common energy source, and that's the approach we've got to try and take, is how we bring all that together, and work to the best solution for the industry and for the electrical infrastructure as well.
Yeah, because I was thinking about you. I've just come back from China. I went out in a Neo ET9 electric car, very luxurious electric. God, it was really nice. I sat in the back out of choice. It was really comfy. But but we went to a battery swapping station and we swapped the batteries, and that's very automated now. And it takes we timed it. Took 3 minutes 30 seconds to swap a 100 kilowatt hour battery out. And you can't really see anything, but you feel a bit of a jiggle when you're in the car. It kind of, it's a bit of a jolt. But what is impressive with that is, that you could set that up as a sort of, a proof of concept. And here we've got a battery, which is what they did a few years ago. They have now done 70 million battery swaps, that company.
Wow.
I mean, when the boss told us that, we kept thinking his Chinese isn't good enough. He means 17 million. But then the translator was saying 70. He went, no, 70 million. That's a lot of battery swaps. And what that's shown is that this is what I'm leading to a question. But what's interesting is there's two ways of revenue for the company. One is that you swap the battery and you pay for that battery. You pay for the electricity in that battery. But the other is, while there are other batteries in the battery swapping station, they're buying and selling electricity on the open market in China. They buy it when it's cheap, they sell it when it's expensive. So like a grid balance. Is that a step you can see coming for Janus and for truck battery swapping stations?
Yeah, definitely. Look, everyone says to us, "Oh, you're a truck conversion company." I go, "No, we're not a truck conversion company.
Right.
We're an energy company.
Right.
We're building one of the largest virtual power networks in Australia and eventually globally with our swappable batteries, because you've got to utilise the asset, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be utilising the battery asset in that power trading piece as well too. Our next lot of chargers coming out will be a 250 kilowatt charger inverter, so we can utilise the batteries in, again, harvest energy during the day when solar's in production at lower costs, and invert it back into the grid. And the big thing around this is grid stabilisation and also having a second revenue stream for your battery assets. And that's where we're heading with Genus as well too. And the beauty of it is our ecosystem software platform. We know when trucks need energy because everything's being tracked. All the data's coming in. Right. So we can optimize, and we know where they're using energy, when they need energy, when they're going to need a battery swap, what the grid wholesale pricing is doing, and it becomes a very unique solution. And that's how you've got to look at it. You've got to be able to take all the inputs in, because at the moment, with the plug-in vehicle model, it's very hard to get optimization and utilization of your charging point because you don't have trucks coming. And that's the difference in the way we've approached it.
Yeah, one of the things that we witnessed in Shanghai at the auto show was the advances in battery technology, in different battery chemistries. I mean, and their real key thing they were really banging on about was safety. I mean, it's now illegal to make a battery in China that can catch fire. So they're doing all these new battery chemistries that are, they were smashing batteries to bits, fully charged batteries with huge hydraulic rams, squashing them, driving a spike through, and still nothing happened. So they were. But that's the great advantage you have. If you've bought an expensive truck with a built-in battery that you recharge with a cable, that's your battery. Whereas yours, you can presumably take out those boxes, refit them with a different battery chemistry and a different software, and upgrade.
That's it. We're completely agnostic to battery cell chemistry as it evolves, and this is the really interesting thing: is the technological advancements in battery cells is going ahead in leaps and bounds. And this is where this is the change that's coming. We're in a technology revolution, and particularly in battery cells, that is where the development is moving forward. We're looking at sodium ion now, which is has no thermal issues, very stable chemistry, long cycle life, and a great energy density. That's the key difference, and it provides a secondary market for the batteries as well too, to go into static storage after they've been in trucks as well. So we have a secondary life, and that's one of the reasons why we're going into power trading with our charging infrastructure, is because there'll be a second life of these batteries. When, as your state of charge discharge, it starts to decrease over the life cycle of the battery, it reaches a point where you'll go, okay, well, it makes sense for us to just put that into a static application where we're not trying to get range, but we want to be able to discharge 500 kilowatts out of that battery
Yeah.
in a very easy way.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, that's the other thing that I always like to sort of underline is the strain that a battery's under in a vehicle is hugely more than one that's running, even a factory or a house or a housing estate or whatever, or an office. That's a little dribble coming out of it. Then when you put your foot hard down in a big heavy truck, that's giving a lot of oomph.
It's using more. I mean, our maximum draw rate's about 0.8 C, so it's still relatively low
Right.
in comparison. But and I think that's the beauty of trucks. You can put more battery mass on the truck, whereas a car, you're
limited.
like if you look at the Tesla or any electric car, 300 kilowatt motor and 100 kilowatt hour battery, you've got high C discharge rates when you're at full load. Whereas with trucks, we're sort of 620 kilowatts on average. We draw about 0.4 C to 0.5 C on an average discharge cycle. So it's reasonably friendly because of the size of your battery mass that we've got on the vehicle. Yeah. But when you do need that energy, you do need it. So
yes, So the big difference that I can see from my experience in Australia and the UK is the actual trucks. So you have bigger trucks. You're bigger and heavier trucks with more wheels in Australia than we do. When I came back from Australia this time, I kept looking at trucks, counting how many wheels they had. But so you have quite a lot of American trucks that are built in America in Australia, which we don't have here, or very much.
So Australia is a 50-50 market of European manufacturers and American manufacturers. Volvo and Kenworth. So Kenworth is a North American brand owned by the Packard family, which is, you probably would see them as DAF prime movers.
That's the same. Yeah. I didn't know that was the same company. Okay. Yeah, we do see them a lot. Yeah.
And you'd have Volvo and Scania pretty much in Europe. So Australia is about 50-50 European manufacturers and North American. And so, it's an interesting thing. The OEMs say that they do a lot of their testing in Australia, because if you can't break it in Australia, you're not going to break it anywhere else in the world. And then obviously we one of the reasons why we've chosen what we've done is so that we can show that we can do it on both manufacturers. So our system works on European trucks and on North American trucks. So they're the next, they're two of the largest markets in the world for Class 8 trucks, particularly in Europe and North America. You have 4 million in North America and about 6 million in Europe, including the UK. So big numbers of trucks and travelling vast distances. But, the great thing about the European trucks is they're only towing one trailer, so to electrify them is really easy. It's not a challenge. It's most of them are 4x2 applications and a very long wheelbase, so you can get a good sized battery in between the steer axle and the drive axle on a European truck.
And I mean, all the trucks that I've seen you convert, I'm just trying to think now, because you'll immediately tell me of one that I've seen that isn't like that, but are what I would call articulated, so with a tractor unit at the front and a trailer at the back. And is that the case? Are those the only ones you do generally? Is that?
We typically we do another thing, what they call a truck and dog, which is just you've got like a body truck, then it tows a dog trailer as well.
Right.
But,
yes.
Yeah, but the majority of what we do is prime movers, or what they call a Class 8 truck, which is typically your articulated vehicles. We haven't gone down to the smaller trucks yet.
Yeah.
But we're trying. We thought, let's tackle the hardest part of the industry. Let's try and tackle the biggest polluting part of the industry.
Yeah.
Because the bigger trucks use more diesel, so more diesel particulate, more pollution in the air. Let's start there.
Yeah.
And if we can prove it works there, then it's easier to come back than it is to go forward. Because what you learn on the larger trucks, you can apply on the smaller trucks, and not necessarily what you learn on smaller trucks can you apply on the larger trucks because of the differentiation. So,
because can you just do it? Let's just very briefly go back to diesel, because I have no idea, and I think you've told me this before, but I'm very proud that I've forgotten for real. But what kind of MPG or kilometers per litre a big truck does when it's burning diesel? I mean, because we know, I mean, I sort of got a very good idea, and most people have a vague idea of what a car will do to the gallon or to the litre, but trucks has got to be very different.
Yeah, so the truck that's behind me in this photo, about 1.6 kilometres to the litre. So if Yeah, so it's fairly heavy on fuel. Like we've got one customer that does 1 kilometre per litre.
Right.
So a one for one because they're towing 3 and 4 trailers, and we've seen some doing 900 metres to a litre of diesel. So
Right.
very very much varies. I mean, most of the European trucks will be getting that 2.1, 2.2
Right.
kilometres to the litre, sometimes 2.5, depending on freight, load, task, and weight of
Yeah.
vehicle. But it's interesting, the aerodynamics, particularly in electric vehicles, play a
Oh, right.
huge
Oh,
factor in energy consumption. It was when we were doing the triple road train in South Australia with BHP and Cube. We're loading to 170 odd tons
wow.
and towing 3 trailers. And it was interesting. They had 20-foot shipping containers of copper concentrate in the middle of them, and so you had 5 gaps of re-engagement of air. And it
Oh,
was interesting when we took the containers off and just ran it with nothing on the trailers. It used about 2.8 kilowatt hours to the kilometre, towing 3 trailers empty, obviously.
right.
When we put the empty containers on it, it went to nearly 4.5 kilowatt hours to the kilometre just with the empty containers on. We loaded them and it went to 5. So
Wow.
it was a factor of 0.5 of a kilowatt per kilometre just by putting weight on it, whereas the wind resistance was the bigger
Wow.
thing causing the reduction, the consumption of energy. So
Wow.
it's interesting how those
Yeah,
dynamics play a huge part.
because that's totally counterintuitive. You would think the more load you put on it, the more energy it's going to use because it's got to move that mass. But I guess once it's moving, what you're then dealing with, I mean, it's going to be harder, presumably, for it to go from a standing start to, I don't know what, 50K,
Yeah,
with a load on. But once it's there, it's then got wind resistance to deal with. Is that the basic story?
it's the wind resistance, but it shows just the efficiency of the electric motor is that
Yeah.
once it gets the mass rolling, it becomes a very efficient way to keep it rolling and moving down
Yeah.
the road. But
Yeah.
it was interesting that the weight didn't play as big a factor as what we thought. It was more the
Yeah.
wind resistance than the
Wow.
weight causing the consumption of it.
Yeah. Because then the other aspect then is you're when I last saw you, you were in your original workshop, which is it's a big thing. It's not that it's little, it's big, but you're moving to a much bigger facility, like a big factory to be able to
Yeah, so
convert more.
we've moved into the new assembly
Oh,
facility.
you have
So
already
it's
moved in. Okay.
Yeah, we moved about 2 weeks after the Everything Electric show in Australia. We moved,
Right.
so we're back over there and in production, and it's great. It's the facility's about 10 times the size of what we were in,
Right.
and at full capacity, we'll produce 400 trucks a year there, and roughly
Right.
around 600 dealer conversion kits a year there as well,
Right.
to ship out to our different dealers around Australia and
Yeah.
in the US as well.
Oh, right. Because that's the thing that I was intrigued about with you is the recent shenanigans. I'm going to put that the most polite way of describing it from the administration in the USA. Just utterly baffling. And I think the thing is, and everyone when I'm actually started listening to the Economist podcast to try and make head or tail. Well, what's great is really clever people who teach economics at universities. They go, I don't know what's going on. We're not alone in being slightly confused about it because I think there's other economic activities that have gone on that I just don't understand, but clearly lots of people do. This one is unique, the
Yeah, look,
chaos of
it's
it. But is that directly affecting you or not yet, or it might? I guess you don't know.
well, we've been doing our capital raise, so
Right,
we're publicly listing Janus on the Australian Stock Exchange, and right a week after we have announced the initial public offering and through the RTO process, he's come out and made that announcement, and
right,
it spooked investors
yeah,
in institutions because the uncertainty in the market made it very challenging for them to go, okay, well, do we invest in things? Don't we invest in things? And
yeah,
I think the biggest challenge that it's done is a lot of our impact investment funds and superannuation funds, they're all judged on a quarter. They're not judged on a longer term vision. and building, looking at something on a 3 or a 5 year horizon. They're always looking at, well, how do I make sure my quarter's profitable and I don't have any dips in my portfolio?
Yeah.
And the challenge, what that does is, especially for businesses like ours, is, we are in that build and commercialization and growing a manufacturing business here in Australia. You're not profitable day one. It's as you scale, and there's a pathway to it over the next 8 months. But no, it's made it very challenging for impact investors to be a part of it, and that's where we're looking out to the retail sector and to the smaller investors to say, right, this is a time to back something that's unique to a country. This is something that can work globally, and Janus will spread globally around the world, but it needs the help of the smaller investor to come along for the journey, that believe in what we need to do and believe in the journey of where Janus is going. So, tariffs, it's another interesting piece that, we have some componentry that comes out of China. So it's now trying to work out what the tariff rate will be if we're exporting to the US. Do we need to factor in the level of Chinese componentry in there? So, Australia at the moment, we believe, has a 10% tariff with the US. And from other information we've been told is that the Chinese tariff's at 130%. So essentially, any of the Chinese componentry in our vehicle that goes to the US will need to have 140% tariff applied to that piece of the componentry. Yeah. So it's a very much a mess that you've got to try and step through. But the first piece we've got to do is get the investment set to be able to capitalise and grow the Janus business. Right. And that's the big thing that we're looking for the investors that want to be a part of this journey.
Because I just want to, I think it's worth underlining the fact that your customer base, as is at the moment, is, one, very satisfied, and two, I'm assuming it is still growing. There's more people interested in converting their trucks. And
we've got 142 contracted orders for what we've got today, and we haven't gone out and done sales and marketing. We've put everything into the product, and let the product speak for itself. Where it's going, we've now got a couple of clients in South Australia that have won work based on using the Janus technology as their solution, and even one government contract down there that's been written in that a certain part of the freight task must utilise the Janus battery swapping solution because they want zero emissions vehicles delivering that componentry into a tunnelling project in South Australia. So it's very interesting. Even the construction companies that are building tunnels, they're looking at it going, well, how can we put more electrification into the vehicles that are running in and out of the tunnel while we're in construction? Because of the fumes that people are breathing in tunnel projects. So
Oh God, I mean, because that's the frustration is, and I really feel it for you, is that it's that step, isn't it? That is the really difficult one, because you've got the orders, you've got people who really want your product, you've got people who they don't have to believe in it. They can actually drive the truck and see, oh, okay, it works. It does the job that we want it to do. There's no belief system. There's some facts and there's some data, and But then to the kind of investment needed to ramp up to get to that higher level of production. I mean, and presumably what you need money for is to build more infrastructure that allows you to make more battery boxes, more conversions, all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's inventory, it's charging infrastructure, additional batteries. There's some upgrades to the workshop with overhead cranes to speed up assembly line processes, those sorts of things. And then as you scale, you've got to be able to hold a certain amount of inventory to be able to meet your production numbers every day. So there's that build up to that process of starting up a manufacturing plant. And then once it gets into rhythm, then it just continues to evolve and it self-funds itself. But it's that initial startup. And, the interesting thing in Australia is that we haven't yet seen support from the federal government and some of the grant bodies. They've been giving a lot of support to OEM manufactured, but not where we're at. And we're hoping soon that they start to realise that, if we want to build product in Australia, and and I think it's a lot of countries around the world is, you support what you do want and tax what you don't want. It's
Yeah.
very simple.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why Janus can't be building trucks in Europe, can't be building
Right.
trucks in North America, because the solution is we're building the solution so it can be picked up and easily put in different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
To help with this decarbonisation and zero emissions journey that we're all on.
Yeah. And I mean, that is, in a sense, that is what all the tariff things are, which is what the confusion is that there's an underlying drive behind those tariffs, which I think is very positive, is that we have sort of shrugged off manufacturing in North America and Europe and Australia. When I first came to Australia, there were still working car factories there that made cars, and that's gone now. And it's kind of how do we rebalance that? Because just having been in China, it's so obvious that just about everything that we have that human beings buy and consume is made there, and it's kind of a bit unbalanced. Whether you if you kind of totally ignore any political stresses or the way that the government runs China or any of that, we have shifted all our manufacturing to China. Over in the last 40 years. I mean, it's taken a long time, and that's
but it's interesting. Like when you go there, I was there in December, and
right.
It's phenomenal the amount of EV cars that you see on the road there. It's very
unbelievable.
It's more about where's the ICE vehicle. It's more EV vehicles that you see on the road than anything. But the manufacturing capacity, the skills, the technology that they've put into it, they've done it really well. And that's one thing you've got. Take the geopolitical stuff out of everything. They are smart, intelligent manufacturers. They are really at the cutting edge of technology, and there's a lot we can learn from some of their solutions and systems that they have in place. Like I was in a battery cell manufacturing facility, and you can eat off the floor, like it's dust proof. It was just it's absolutely spotless, and you're watching every second a battery is zooming down this line, and you sit there and you look at it, and 50 megawatts went past me in the last minute. So I think we've got to look at it differently and say, okay, well, who is the best in class at certain manufacturing? If you look at Europe, Airbus makes great airplanes as well too. There's not a lot of plane manufacturing that happens in China. Your two major markets are those markets. Does that mean that China should just stop buying or whack massive tariffs on airplanes? It just on aircraft. It doesn't make sense. We've got to look at adopting different technologies, and yes, bring certain manufacturing back home to repatriate it back into your country, but do it smartly. I don't think going and building, in our solution, I don't think going and building a truck plant from scratch
doesn't make sense. No.
But converting vehicles and getting them to, bringing their technology level up to that of a zero emissions, like what we do, that makes a lot of sense. With the best componentry that we can source globally.
Because that was, I did think of you. I was walking down a very busy street or boulevard in Shanghai last week. And it was, tree lined, and the flower beds are immaculate. Thousands of scooters, electric scooters going past all the time, no noise. Thousands of cars and buses. All the buses are electric, the taxis are electric. And then I heard a big growling diesel engine. And I went, oh, where's that? I turned around, and it was actually a big truck that's being used in the construction industry. So it was moving rubble, I think. And I went, oh, they haven't done those ones yet. So everything else. I mean, you do occasionally, you'll hear a petrol engine of a car. So there'll be hybrids and old petrol cars, but they really stand out. I mean, I was staggered by the percentage. I would say, and I'm sure it varies around China, but in Shanghai, the center of Shanghai, we're looking at 80-90% of the vehicles on the road are electric. And the ones that aren't tend to be big, heavy trucks. And that's,
and that's part of their journey and their evolution of where they're going. But it is, I was in Shenzhen and Shanghai, and same thing in Shenzhen. Lots of electric cars and beautiful electric cars that they've built. But the pollution that you used to see 10 years ago is starting to dissipate, and the cleanliness of the cities
Extraordinary. Yeah.
It's extraordinary, and so
Yeah.
it's, people say, oh, you're a greenie, you're this, you're that, and I go,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but it's the fundamental principle of, if you don't think that your ICE vehicle is bad for you, I invite you
Yeah.
to park it in your garage, shut the
Yes.
door,
Shut the door.
and
Keep
talk
it
to me in
running.
an hour and tell me how you're feeling.
Exactly.
It just because we can put the emissions into the atmosphere, into a
Yeah.
bigger atmosphere, doesn't make it okay.
No.
It's the health benefits for our society, in our built up areas where these vehicles are operating.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to make a change to, and
Yeah.
it's something that, put the climate argument to one side.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to keep doing this.
No.
We're actually affecting the air that we breathe.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
critically important.
Which is a kind of very good, you would hope, motivation for big investment companies to invest in a company like Janus. I mean, there's a lot at stake, and you can see it in purely financial terms. And I think you have to, because you have to make a viable business and it has to support itself and make money. But there's that overriding, which I think you've got that balance right. That overriding ambition to kind of, well, actually, I say the technology is better. That's my argument. It's a better technology. We've benefited hugely from combustion technology. It's been brilliant.
Yep.
I don't want to denigrate that for a minute. It changed the whole world. But there is now a viable alternative to that, and Janus is a good example of that. I think it is.
It is, and it's an economic solution that, and the way we've looked at it is, it's got to make economic sense for everyone in the party.
Yeah.
Everyone, the investor. It's got to make sense for the fleet operator, the community. Every part of the chain's got to have. It's got to have an economic value, and the environment is just the beneficial byproduct of what we do. That's the way that we look at it, because sustainability is a number of different things, and it just can't be all heavily weighted in the environment's factor. You've got to take that as a consideration, but it's got to be financially sustainable. And the Janus solution is, and it's at scale, the business becomes a very profitable business because of the way that we've looked at how we do it, and it passes on those savings to its clients and their customers at the end.
Right. I mean, I just really hope that you can find some good investment in time that really helps support you and helps you to grow, because I just think what you're doing is remarkable. And I think it's almost worth, I just want to mention that, because I just think it's such a cool story of one of your customers who had their cement truck that caught fire and all that lovely response. You ring him up and say, look, we're really sorry, we're going to investigate. So, oh, mate, I think the quote was, shit happens, I want 5 more,
Yeah.
Which was such a great, that's the best advert for an electric truck I've ever heard,
Yeah.
And very Australian as well.
It is. And, it's a true testament to Cement Australia in their commitment.
Yeah.
And they understand things like, every manufacturer, everyone has a point where something goes wrong. It's how you investigate it, how you resolve the risk, how you reduce the risk, and transparency, and take everyone along for the journey. And, we've had big changes to our battery packs. We've learned a lot from that, which is great. Yeah. And we've put those improvements into the pack, and the safety factor of a pack is a power of 10 more than where it was. As Elon Musk might say, that was a great rocket crash we had. We learnt a lot.
Yes.
It's unfortunate, and the good thing is the safety systems worked. The interesting feedback from the driver was, he said, I had 9 minutes to get the truck off to the side of the road.
Wow. So the truck was still working, still able to move. He could get it off the highway and all the rest of it, and then get out himself.
Correct. Drove it off the bridge and parked it and hopped out, and then realised, there's an issue. And then obviously the incident ensued from there. But the key difference between that and a diesel truck, and just what people don't know, is that there's a diesel truck fire every day in Australia.
Wow.
And that's what's reported. They believe that's about 30% under what is reported. But the difference with a diesel is you don't know you're on fire until the flames.
You can see flames. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So, and this is the challenge. Like the ICE engines now, your turbos and your exhaust systems are running anywhere between 500 to 700 degrees to be able to burn the emissions and evaporate the NOx and SOx, and then you put the after treatment in it. So, you got super hot pipe work underneath an ICE vehicle, and that's why there's so many of those fires.
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunate that the incident happened with us, but we learnt from it, and no one was hurt, and we've been able to improve the safety factor. And when your customer says to you, let's do another 5, and you've got the driver saying, well, put me back into an electric truck because I like the fact that the systems were right. There's no better
really
proof
good.
of
Well,
the
one we interviewed one of the drivers for Cement Australia, and he was really good, and he sort of expressed how. And I said, look, just for balance, can you tell is there like a negative side? Does what is there a downside to it? And he just stood there. And I always remember there was a fly around his face because it was a really hot day, and he just went, nah. There was nothing. He really did try to think, because I was just one little thing, sort of just to, because he was so amazingly positive about the trucks and the experience of being a truck driver with the vibration and the noise and the stress and the gears and the sound and the smell. And then getting in a truck that you just basically turn it on, you put your foot down, it starts moving, you take your foot off, it stops. You're in busy traffic, stop with huge weight on the back. It's much easier to get going. He's overtaking other trucks, all the advantages. So I just wanted one thing for him to say, oh, well, when you do this, you have to do that. Nothing. He couldn't think of anything. So he was pretty good. He was a good spokesman for you.
It's interesting, the feedback. Like they brought their wives along to the Everything Electric show, and
great.
Their wives just said to us, they don't smell of diesel when they come home. They seem fresher. They don't seem fatigued. The social benefit for the driver in the way they feel. They feel fresh when they get out of the vehicle, as opposed to being in a diesel truck. You've got that heat and vibration. And noise that plays a factor on fatigue in drivers. And I think that's the key difference. And not to mention, you don't have any diesel, you don't have any fumes in the truck.
Yes.
So
I mean, I think we should wind up now, but is there a plan? I'm not trying to force the Neo model on you, but is there a long-term plan for, say, on the freeway between Sydney and Brisbane to have a thing at a service station, big box that you drive up to, and it swaps your batteries and you carry on? Is that kind of long-term planning? Is that a thing you're trying to do?
Yeah, look, we've looked at a robotic changing system. So essentially, the truck will just drive underneath the battery stack, and utilising just robotic warehouse stacking cranes that are in warehouses now that put pallets away in pallet racking, and it'll simply just pull both batteries out, put another one in, and we'll get the change down to less than a minute. But that's part of the evolution of the journey of where we go with Genus. It's taking that technology, learning what we need, what we know now at this scale, and then scaling it up once we get to scale of volumes of trucks. But that's essentially the way it will occur in the not too distant future.
Right.
But again, it needs investment.
Yes, of course. Yes.
It needs people to come along for the journey, and we've got to build that market as well too, which is what we're in the process of doing.
Right. I mean, it's so exciting what you do. I mean, I really do love it, and I will definitely. I know one person who's got some money. I'll tell him to invest.
But we want the smaller investors, because that's we look great. Big investors are great, but I think this is a real opportunity for community to get behind something that they believe in and come along for the journey and be a part of that journey as this business evolves and grows. And it's a minimum investment at the moment of $2,000.
I see. So you don't need $100,000 or something. $2,000, very, very reasonable.
Yeah. So it's a small investment for parties. We're listing at 20 cents a share. So it's a reasonable amount of shares that you get, but it can be as small as $2,000 and as large as whatever anyone feels comfortable with. So but it's all done through a prospectus. It's all been verified, and the auditors. It's been done to a retail level. So very simple, but it's a journey, and it's a great opportunity for people to be involved and follow that journey and be a part of something that's going to grow into a global business.
Well, we'll make sure all the links to those prospectuses are in the show notes for this episode, because that's certainly a good way in.
So we're closing it off on the 7th of May. So we're
right. We've got a bit of time.
70% of the way through in the raise now. So it's very close to closing off. So 7th of May it closes off, Rob. So
right. But I mean, that's very encouraging that you're 70% of the way there. So it's not like you've got $10 in the bank and you need a lot more. I mean, you've got some proper hefty support so far.
Correct. So far it's there, but we've got to get a spread of investors, and we've got to raise the minimum. So we're not leaving anything to chance, and it's definitely a tough journey at the moment. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, really good luck, Lex. I just think you're amazing. The company is incredible. The technology is extraordinary. I mean, I still have a very strong memory of when you drove me in one of your trucks, and it was just so bizarre to be in, because I'd been in a few big trucks in my time, and they're really noisy, hot, vibratory things. And this thing was just sailing along the road.
They glide along, don't they? It's
wonderful.
It's a nice experience.
Well, look, this has been fantastic talking to you. I'm sure I'll see you. I'll hopefully see you in November in Melbourne, and I'll be around then. But great stuff. And all right. You take care. All right.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye. Really hope you enjoyed that. What an amazing man. What an amazing story. Please do have a look at the links. They're in the show notes to their share offer. If you want to invest, I think down, 2,000 Australian dollars, about £1,000, just over $1,000 US, in a company that is really making a difference. I would never advise anyone to invest in anything. I don't understand any of it. I'm not that sort of person. But you can judge for yourself. You can see on their website what they're doing, what they have done, and use a bit of common sense. But I really think it's worth having a look at. It's closing quite soon, so that's why one of the reasons we put this podcast out at an unusual time. That's all. As always, after you've told your friends about the Fully Charged Show podcast and you've subscribed yourself, if you have been, thank you for watching. We're really excited to partner with Duracell Energy to showcase their amazing renewable energy solutions. If you want to reduce your energy bills and join the renewable energy transition, installing home battery storage and solar panels at home is a great way to start. Duracell Energy's ecosystem of products typically partners with solar panels, but they can be used just as effectively without it, particularly for electric vehicle owners or anyone looking to take control of their energy. And with Duracell Energy's Platinum Homeowner offer, viewers can get a custom service that pairs you with top quality products and the best installers in your area. Plus, Duracell Energy's batteries, inverters, and EV chargers work together on one easy-to-use app. With features like dynamic tariff integration and grid services, you'll be able to maximize your return. Ready to get started? You can get your quote today. And don't forget, we're also giving away a Duracell Energy Bunny in every episode. Just answer the question about Fully Charged by following the link in the description. Good luck!